Welcome everybody to today's sit down. The gentleman, the guest that I have next to me on today's sit down is an amazing human being. He's got a wonderful story. And before I give you the name, I'm just going to give you a sneak peek into who he actually is. If you've heard about the Dakar, Roof of Africa, or the Baja races in the United States, this man has not only competed in them, he's won some of them. The amazing, the wonderful, the gentleman, Mr. Alfie Cox. How are you, sir?
Thank you, Will. Thanks for having me, man. Really.
I'm so excited.
This is an amazing studio, and
your energy is so good, sir. Thank you very much.
yeah, it's been an amazing, I suppose, journey of my life. Eh?
I want to dive straight into your history. A young man, high school, primary school, growing up, are you obsessed with motorbikes? Are you trying to race them? What's going on in your mind? Have you always had this vision of, I want to just jump on a motorbike and race everybody and win? Or has that evolved over the period of time?
I think it sort of started around about 11, 12 years old.
Okay.
A good friend of mine at school, he had motocross bikes, but
Okay.
My parents owned a taxi service. So they didn't really have money to buy me a bike, and at 12 years old, you're still riding a bicycle. So I used to go after school to my friend's place, Rolly Struckmeyer. He lived in Prestbury in Pietermaritzburg. A lot of people will know it. And he had two beautiful motocross bikes. His father was Jock Struckmeyer, who was a builder.
Okay.
And he had two very nice motocross bikes. So I became the gopher and the mechanic.
Nice.
So at that age, I already started throwing spanners, already started learning how to fix a bike. And then also in the afternoon after school, we used to go into the bush, and he used to like to smoke. So while he was having a smoke, I was practicing how to ride a bike,
Yes.
So while he was having a smoke, I was
at 11 years old.
Yeah, 12 years old
Sounds
or whatever.
Familiar.
So,
Yes.
yeah, so I mean, I've never smoked in my life, but it was my opportunity to learn how to ride a bike. And I said, you can smoke as many cigarettes as you want. So every afternoon, I suppose his parents thought that we were going to go and practice in the forest, but I was riding and he was having a smoke. But he was a good motocross rider, very good musician, played in the church on a Sunday.
Nice.
He was good at 12 years old, talented youngster. And that's how I started, in other words, going to the races with him, mechanicking for him. And that grew in my passion.
And how do you journey from that and end up, on the biggest races? I mean, you've been all over the world. Off camera, we're talking. I'm from Bulgaria. It's like, hey, I've raced in Bulgaria. I've raced here. How does that 11, 12-year-old kid end up, on the starting line at the Dakar or the Roof of Africa?
I think you talk about, I don't know if you can call it setting yourself a goal.
Yes.
Or a passion for something. Many of the youngsters now, it is a lot easier. And at that age, I knew that I would love to have raced, but I couldn't race. So every day after school, I used to ride to Jack Gray Motorcycles. It was an old motorcycle business. Rodney Gray, the famous road racer, 12-time Superbike champion. Rodney became he actually gave me the name of Alfie. My name's not Alfie.
Not.
So people don't know that, but Alfie's only a nickname.
Okay.
From 12 years old, Rodney, a little bit deaf from the superbikes, and I used to go there after work to help work on his brother, Jeff Gray. He had a beautiful Hondas in those days, and I used to go and help work on the bikes. And because Rodney was a bit deaf, when I told him my name is Andrew,
okay,
he said Alfie. And because I had red hair, looked like from the Mad magazine, I
yes.
think Mad. And from that day onwards, only my parents called me Andrew. Nobody knows me. It's a bit difficult when I get on a plane now because I've got to make sure that the travel agent remembers that I'm not Alfie Cox, because I won't get on the plane. Yeah. So
this
if everybody knows, that's it. So yeah, Rodney, actually from 12 years old, I got the nickname of Alfie, and it's stayed ever since. And yeah, I think the passion of going to the motorcycle dealership after school, helping wash bikes, and that's how it grew, thinking one day I'd love to race, and knowing that in those days, at about 16, if you were in grade 10, I think it is now, it was not a problem to leave school. I already told my dad, end of grade 10, which is standard 8,
I'm gone.
I got my job in Pietermaritzburg at the Honda dealership with Mr. John Smith. Rodney, dad had closed down the bike shop, and he was also working there, Mervyn Kukumore. So I had 2 mentors in the bike shop. And yeah, and then, you know, when you turn 16, your parents buy you a buzz bike. And I remember my mom going to West Bank, and the bike was, I think, 299 Rand, and she financed it. I mean, can you imagine that if you think about it today?
But the value of the 299
yeah,
Rand back then
100%.
is probably 29,000 Rand today, if not more.
Yeah, so it was like, basically she financed 299 Rand at West Bank. So I got this buzz bike, which is every youngster's dream when you turn 16, to have a 50cc, you know.
Beautiful.
But it was not 3 months later. I was going to leave school, obviously, and go and get a job. And then Mr. John Smith said, okay, this is the deal. We'll sell your 50, and we put the money from your 50 into the first motocross bike, a CR125.
Okay.
My sister and my brother-in-law, Della and Martin, helped, and got my first motocross bike at 16. That's why I started so young in life, and then continued until, you know, my late 40s racing. So yeah, that's how I started motocross, and I took to it like immediately. Won the Natal Championship the first year. First year I won the Natal Championship, but I wasn't on the SA circuit yet. And then I got a sponsorship from Midmacore, which is the head office of Honda. And yeah, I was working at the bike shop, but then you remember we have military service.
Okay.
So that's what came around
at
in 1980.
Boom.
No, it was I only worked for a year. I had to go straight to military service. So at 17, I was already in the military. 2 years in the military. You know, when you go to the military, you learn I know a lot of that just to jippo.
Yes.
Because you got to get home on the weekends.
Yes.
And yeah, I had letters from the motorsport, you know, that I was racing. So Pretoria every weekend for about 7-8 months on the Alveerde bus, all the way to Durban, back on a Sunday night, just to go and race. Yeah, so the military service took up time, but unfortunately, I think it was the best thing that ever happened for youngsters in those days. 100%.
I agree to a degree. Yes, no, absolutely.
You know, when I see the boys now. But yeah, that's just how life is. And yeah, trying to pull a move to get home as many times as you could.
Make a plan.
So yeah, that was basically how I started. But young in life, like my boys started at 4 years old, you know. Most kids today that are early champions, I mean, they start at a young age. But it was, unfortunately, I couldn't. I had to wait till I started working. But the funny thing is, I think the apprenticeship in those days, we made 18. Our salary was 18 Rand a week. Gave my mom 10 Rand for board, and I had 8 Rand for the week.
To jaw
and to race.
Imagine.
So it was, yeah, listen, it's a, you know, when you think about it, started in the 70s, you know, but yeah, and then.
And walk me through, you're obviously very talented because you're starting late. You didn't have that financial backing to have, you know, the amount of practice that you should have entering the circuit for the first time. Then you, like I like the word, you jippo, you make a plan to go and race on the weekends, come back to Pretoria. How do you get your first boost? How does a company identify and say, this young man here will make it big. We can send him, you know, to the roof of Africa. He's got the goodies. How does that journey happen?
So I think in today's times, we get it all the time. We've got a motorcycle dealership. We are KTM in Natal,
dealership, yes.
And you get fathers sending CVs in all the time. But, you know, people don't realize you got to pay your school fees first. So, you know, for somebody to sponsor you, you need to get out there first.
Yes.
And I always say to people, go there, cut your teeth. And if you can make the top 3 and you get noticed, you're definitely going to get help.
Yes.
But I always say to the people, look at your circles that you are in. Say you're in a circle where the guy down the road, you buy petrol from him, you're friendly at the supermarket, you know, and all these little guys, go to them and they're personal friends of yours, or there's a mate of yours that's comes to the bra on the weekend that's got a bit of money, he doesn't mind helping. We need to look for the rich uncle that'll help you just to get you going. And then if your talent is good enough, you'll be sponsored, that's for sure. But you have to go and cut your teeth first. It's not possible for somebody to give you a ride and you haven't done anything yet. So natural progression, go and show your works and show what you're doing, because mostly nowadays, whatever bike you buy is competitive to be in the top results.
Really?
The bikes off the showroom floor now.
Really? That good, eh?
Yeah, they are ready to race. You don't need, you listen to people, the thing's got to have the engine modified and you've got to have this done. And just, the bike is good enough to get a good result.
Really?
Obviously, as you progress, you will want to do suspension, you'll want to do, but most of the bikes you buy today, doesn't matter what brand, are ready to race for sure.
I always ask elite athletes, and you've been an elite athlete for 3 decades. What is the mindset or the process? We've spoken to a couple of X Games performers.
Yeah.
Before the helmet goes on, what's the conversation? Let's say, we've got Dakar. We're starting, or Roof of Africa. It's a big race. I mean, it's covered. There's helicopters. It's madness. How do you prepare yourself before the time? Let's say a couple of hours before the time. And what's the thought process? Okay, it's go time. How do you speak to yourself?
So I think physical wise, living in South Africa, we don't really have a winter.
Yes.
So we can be on a motorcycle 11 months of the year, which I think when I look at my years of racing, it was definitely the positive side of me. Because I went to Europe to go and race for a year. By the time you can only start racing in the spring, and the spring's not always in April in Europe.
It depends where
you are.
And how the weather feels.
How the weather feels. So, the weather's not as good as what we are. And then you have to finish the racing by October, because that cold blanket comes down. Now you can imagine an overseas guy who wants to go and do the Dakar. So October comes, it's a lot of indoors. If you live in the north somewhere, south of Spain, the weather still is good, but or you got to move down there, where I could carry on right until the 11th hour. So living here was the first plus, because your physical training, saddle time and physical training, where they would only be able to do training indoors. I can still do training outdoors as well, on the motorcycle, physical training. But from my side of it, I never turned up the wick before I went to a race. I had my program. I trained 5 days a week. I always made sure that I was one step ahead of my opposition in physical training. I didn't wake up in the morning saying, oh, maybe this morning I'm not feeling so good. That was never in my whether I had to go, because I always had a job. I was never professional. Never in my life was I professional.
Throughout your career?
Throughout my career, I worked from 8 to 5. I had a job. Nowadays, the boys are all professionals, got time. So if I had to train before work, Hazel would go together. She would work in a different place to me. And I would go to the gym 4 o'clock in the morning, be at work by 7:30. Or if I didn't do gym work that day, when we drove home, we stay on a small holding, 4 kilometers from the highway.
Okay.
She would drop me off on the highway and take my running shoes on, run back to the farm. So,
okay.
You always stay one step ahead. Fitness it shows in the end of a race. You always had some guys that were good in the first, especially we did long distance races. Like the Dakar, it's a long day. Yeah. And you can have a guy that's on your tail for the first 2-3 hours, but then he drops off because physically he cannot hold the speed,
Yes.
So, yeah. But as a mental thing, you become a machine. A race like the Dakar, it's just the same thing. Wake up in the morning very early, because the motorcyclists leave, in the dark in the morning.
Yes.
But you don't race in the dark, but you have to transport to the start. And then first light, as the helicopter can fly, then they send the riders off. So mentally, you're in tune to the day, but, it's not like sitting on a motocross start line where, okay, I know I've got 20 minutes racing, like what the boys do now.
Yes.
There's a different, because remember, there's different facets in racing. You got motocross,
Yes.
jumps, the same
Long
track.
distance.
No, well, it's the same track, but it's 15 to 20 minute racing.
Yes.
So you know the jump, you know the corner.
What
you know,
gear must,
yeah, you know, that's
be
because
engaged.
you've trained that.
Yes.
Every motocross track teaches you where to put your points, where to go into the corner. You know where you're getting your speed. Whereas if you go and do a race like a rally, or you go into Botswana, it's the unknown. High speed, unknown. So there, the elements will always be against you. Something's going to chew you up if you're constant. So concentration, I always say to people, Dakar Rally is not about fitness. Yes, it is about fitness, but it's more about a mental pressure, because all day long, you've got to do everything by yourself. You've got to scroll the road book. You've got to watch the GPS. You've got to watch the compass bearing, look at the mileage, keep the things in synchronization. You're doing 5-6 things with your fingers while flat out. So there's the difference between mental pressure than physical pressure. And I always say to people, when I take people for riding lessons, or we go on an adventure tour, and you see the guy, he's fighting the bike. You need to be like a gymnast. Let the bike do the work, you go for the ride. You use no energy. Once you get that into your head, a lot of people get arm pump after 5 minutes on the motorbike because they're gorilla gripping the handles. Yeah. Some people get it on the road, arm pump. Because you're just nervous. You're too tense. And obviously the blood flow doesn't flow in the right places because you're holding the handlebars. We learn just to hold it. I'm not going to say like a fairy, but, just let the bike do the work. You go along for the ride, if that explains it.
Let's get to the youngsters starting today. If you've had a beautiful career, 30 years, and I mean, you're still doing, you're still giving back to that community daily. I mean, you agreeing to come to the show and share your stories, giving back to the community. If you can go back, to that young man a couple of years ago, 17, 18, starting off, winning your first race, what would you take back with you then that would serve you, so that, the youngsters, whether you're 6, 16 or 17, 21, and you're starting off in your sport, what is the one thing that served you very well, but you learned later on in your career?
I think for me, nothing's changed. I'm the same person as I was then when I was 16 than I am now at 60. Because I always say to the youngsters or famous, never change the character that you were taught from your family. If you think you're bigger than the sport, or you think you're bigger than other people, that's definitely going to get you down one day. Never change as a person. Be humble, be appreciative of what you get, because let's be honest, when you get into the big league, these youngsters, they can earn good money. They get everything thrown at them, kitchen sink. I mean, they get helmets, boots. We were lucky to get one helmet and one boots in our day, a pair of boots. So they do get more. You do get social media, I believe, has just blown things out of proportion. I'm an old school guy. I'm BC, before computers.
BBC, born before computers.
Before computers.
But Dad also says that you guys are the same age.
Yeah, and it's crazy. The social media, some blokes are Facebook specialists. They fosters things on 2 wheels on Facebook, but we go to the races and it's not so, because that's what social media has done for you. It allows you to get yourself out there
big time,
but it can be also embarrassing because you're pumping yourself and you're not that type of a person. So to the youngsters, stay humble, never change who you are, and respect for other people. It's a lesson in life that you will never regret. These youngsters nowadays, they're bulletproof. You can't tell them what to do. And I'm sure most parents, we're all living through it. We're all living it through at the moment. And we just old farts. We don't know what we're talking about.
But may I challenge you? You were also bulletproof at the age of 15 and 16.
100%.
Nothing's changed.
I still remember my boss. When I take a bike for a test ride, I was a motocross rider in those days. And go out the workshop and put the bike on the back wheel and skid it around the corner. And the boss used to go mad. He says, "That's not your bike. It belongs to somebody else." Nothing's going to go wrong. You come back and you've scratched the bike because you didn't listen.
And now
That-
you've got a lot of explaining to do.
Exactly, and that's exactly where we come to the bulletproof. You know,
So
come home and tell your dad, no, the dog ran out in front of you.
the
That's why
taxi.
you crashed his car, you know,
Yeah.
or the taxi. And
Yeah.
we've lived there.
Biggest mistake that you're comfortable sharing? Say, you know what? This was a mistake I made.
No, I think you know, from that point of it is to learn. Where do I go with this one? Is to learn to overcome mistakes that you've made, and I just think I could have done a lot of things differently when it comes to that. Going to Europe on the wrong side, you know, changing the way I wanted to race. I was an enduro rider and I was an off-road rider. And when I went to America, there's two parts of America. There's the East Coast and the West Coast.
Yes, that's right.
And I think from my point of view, one of my mistakes was going at the wrong time, exactly when the Gulf War in 91. Getting there, it was chaos in the country. I was on the wrong side. I'd been let down by the sponsor, but you know, you were ready to go. And remember that in those days, well, we were lucky. It was only 2.3 to 1.
Yes.
You're going there with a little bit of money.
Yes.
But I went to the wrong side of that. I would say that would be one of my downfalls where I got hurt. But then I ended the year coming back and winning the Roof of Africa. So I made up for. Yeah, I would say that could be a mistake, but it was a lesson learned at the end of the day. Hazel and I just got married. We went over there and
How old were you
promised. I was getting back to that as well. I was 25 because remember, one of the other things that we'll touch on is remember the political situation in South Africa up until 92. Till Mr. Mandela was let out of prison, we
weren't allowed to travel.
I couldn't go to the 6th day, 97. You couldn't get a visa to go to the States. And eventually we pulled a move where we managed to get to America, Jeremy Davies and myself in 88, we went to America for the first time.
I love that. I'm gonna use it daily. You have to pull moves.
We have to. I mean, you know, we eventually got a visa for the American consulate and we went to the States because you just couldn't get a visa. So I lost from a 17-year-old boy to 25 years old international time, which will always stead you in later on in life.
Yes.
So when I tried to go overseas, because you always win in your own country first in your province.
Yes.
Then you win in the country. And then you always got these big dreams. Okay, now I need to go and compete internationally. And in those days, you know, we were racing the Barberspun 500, the Toyota 1000 desert race. Now we wanted to go to Baja in America to go and race. We knew nothing about it. Jeremy Davies and myself. And we got a visa, took our bags, and off we went to the Baja. So,
enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a good. And then I decided to go to America. We went back again in 89 and 90.
Okay.
Still battling to get a visa, but we'd already been there once. Good boys, we never got into trouble, so
it was a little bit easier.
We came home, it was a little bit easier.
And now
and then 92, because I wanted to do the 6th day. Now the international 6th day enduro is like the Olympics. So it's 6 days of riding, enduro riding on a special test, all on the clock.
Okay.
And if you're a certain percentage on the leader, you get a gold medal. But up until 92, South Africa was refused. And still today, I got a best friend in East Germany, Harold Storm, that met me in 92 in Australia, in Cessnock. And he said to me, he was on the team of the East Germans when the big boss came and said, we've stopped South Africa from going. And him and I were sitting next to each other. We're friends today, 25 years later. So it was hard, But hey, that's what we lived through in South Africa in the apartheid era.
Yes.
I'll never regret it or be angry about it. I just lost those years. And you say to yourself now, what could have happened? Where would I have been? It's water under the bridge.
It was supposed to happen.
Move on.
Yeah, move on. It was supposed to happen that way. And you made the best of it.
Yeah.
you made the best of it. Now,
100%.
as a rider, I always pose the question, takes a village to raise a man. As a rider, who do you think was most influential in your career? Because the guidance that you needed at 15 is different to the guidance that you need maybe preparing for like a Roof of Africa or Dakar. And then the guidance that you need as an experienced rider is different, in my opinion, in my point of view. Because like you said, it's more mental. You know, the physical, you wake up, you exercise, you train, but the mental. Who are the three people and how did they adjust your mindset to be able to have, because 29 years, 30 years, 3 decades is a very long career.
It's a long time.
On an impact sport. I mean, that's joints, you've had injuries, we'll go into that. But who are the three people and how did they change your perspective?
So I think in the beginning, my first boss at Killaby's, the Honda dealership in Pietermaritzburg, Mr. John Smith, he was very instrumental in getting me racing. And then later on in life, when I left the motorcycle business, I went to work for who became my mechanic, Alec McDonald, the gentleman I spoke to you about. He's 83 now. And he was really, he took me in. I was almost like his son, because my dad was a taxi driver. My family never came from a motorcycle background, but Alec was an engineer. He raced in Zimbabwe, and he took me in and was my mechanic. And I worked for him for about 8 years in his engineering firm, and we were like a team together. And then obviously Hazel, my wife, when she came along, I mean, that just, you know, they say behind every successful man
is
a good woman. And honestly, we've been together 33 years, married. And she, without her, you know, there's always somebody in the engine room all the time. And even today in our business now, and the two boys, I could keep reminding them, don't give your mom trouble. She's the one that keeps this whole thing together. No, 100%. Rodney Gray was also a fourth person, if I'd say it. You know, Rodney Gray was road racing at Roy Hesketh Circuit way back in those days. He caused me to run away from school, and I heard the bikes around the track, take my bicycle and go to the race.
And go and watch.
Yeah, go and ride. Yeah, so Rod as well. But I'd say John Smith, Alex McDonald, and my wife Hazel. Yeah.
Beautiful. Now, for up-and-coming riders, what would you say are landmines that they should look out for in your sport specifically? Landmines meaning I've seen a lot of people fall into this trap, or a lot of people fall into this trap. So how we pose the question is, and we plot it as a GPS coordinate. Don't step there, it's Aina. What would you say are the biggest landmines in your sport?
I think it's difficult because it's an expensive sport.
Yes, it is. What does a 1 to 5 cost?
1 to 5 is 120,000 now.
And that's the. Am I correct to say that's the entry level?
That's the ready to race, basically.
120,000
grand, for a lot of brand new 1 to 5. Yeah, so that's your school boy. I mean, a little 85 cc is 90,000 now. So we tend to see long as dad's paying, those kids are still racing.
Yes.
But it's so difficult for me because I'm old school to comment on something like that. But people get wrapped up in what if we throw money at something, we'll become a champion. In some ways, it does help, but some dads think money will buy a champion, and that's not in my case. It was never, ever like that. So I say to them, don't fall in that trap. Yes, make the bike nice, put the bare essentials on it, but it's got to come from the heart, and it's got to come from inside you, the will to win. If it's easy and dad just buys the bike and doesn't worry about you don't have to get up in the morning to train, and you go to the track and he can see that you don't feel like riding today, and no, don't worry, my boy, everything's okay. That's a trap.
That's a big trap.
That's a big trap that they'll fall into, and it'll just keep going for eventually dad and him knocking heads together because he's crazy because the money point of view is the biggest trap, because parents will tell the kids, how much money this is costing, and that's the worst thing to do.
Yes.
And then obviously the internet. Bless the internet soul, but for me, you can Google anything. And all people want to do is sell you stuff.
Yeah.
Because my stuff's going to make your bike faster. This is going to make it better. And people fall into that trap and they just buy this stuff. And yes, the bike looks bling, but the boy is still going the same. I say, are you going to gain 1 second faster or 2 seconds faster by doing that? In Brad Binder's case, I understand that that's road racing. It's all about that type of thing. You know, that's about, you know, electrical components. It's about handling. It's about, but on a motocross bike or on an off-road bike,
so much technique and
there's
so much
a lot of technique involved in it. And obviously the elements are against you. There is those certain traps. That's my opinion. Some people might say no, but that's my opinion.
You've raced both 2-stroke, 4-stroke. What do you prefer?
In the old days, you only could get 2 strokes.
Yes.
But the older you get, the 4-stroke technology has gone so far now that it's that good and that much enjoyment. But if you're an extreme rider, you'll take a 2-stroke because there is extreme enduros now. You've seen Roof of Africa, hardly anybody comes there with a 4-stroke because there's a few elements that are against you. The rivers might be high. If you drown a 4-stroke, water in the engine, you have got a chance of damaging it. Whereas a 2-stroke, it's easy. Empty it out, off you go. And also there's a little bit of a weight difference between the 2-stroke and the 4-stroke.
2-stroke is a little bit lighter.
It's lighter and it's got a less engine nurture where you're not feeling like you've got this heavy crankshaft turning all the time. And but some guys prefer 4-strokes. They climb mine shafts, a 4-stroke, and it's a fun bike to ride. I use them on my adventure tours because the guy that comes from Europe, he only rides a 4-stroke because the neighbor, if you start a 2-stroke in Germany, the oak will be phoning the cops, you know, if he sees smoke. So most guys ride 4-strokes.
4-strokes. Okay. Very political answer.
Very
political answer. So both are great.
I got to be careful what I say.
I love the answer.
No, it's difficult. This old school, new school thing is just.
What do your kids ride?
So both my boys ride for KTM South Africa.
4-strokes?
No, 2-stroke.
2-stroke.
The eldest boy rides a 4-stroke because he races the FOSS races. So that's your big 450, 500cc. And then the younger boy, he's a schoolboy, so they race 2-strokes. Schoolboys are right up until 250.
2-stroke.
2-strokes.
That thing is an animal. I've ridden one. It's the wildest thing. It's like jumping on
but the new ones now are totally different.
In which way?
They've gone linear now. You don't have that exploding. Everybody thinks of the CR500. Those days are gone.
Like nothing on your back.
No,
and then your friends are like, are you okay? Not anymore.
Now it's really so user-friendly. There's so much adjustments you can make to them. You can bring the power on early, late. It's just technology. You're not going to change that. But that sound of that 2-banger on the track is still something else.
Definitely. I can see it brings the smile to your face. Good. Best advice that you've ever received and you can give in the sense that, you know, sometimes advice for me hits me like a train. Bah! Sometimes it lands like snow. What's the best advice that you can think of?
Myself, personally, I think you have to have a passion first and then obviously a dream. Those two things.
Passion first and then a dream.
Well, you can have a dream and then your passion is or the other way around, is to race a motorcycle, if that's what you want to do. Then people get confused about money. Money always comes into it. And if you let money get ahead of those two things, that will cloud. It'll disrupt what you're doing. Get the passion to do something, and you've got a dream to do it. If you keep those two things together, irrespective of the money, if you're a good enough guy and you get paid to do the job, but it shouldn't be waking up in the morning as how much money can I make. It should be wake up in the morning. And it's still my passion, and my dream is to be this on the motorcycle.
And let me work.
I had that situation on the Dakar, man. I was lying in 3rd place. I think there was 2 days to go, and you know, in my day, we didn't make money like the guys make now. So, and I still remember today, and Hazel and I talk about it. It was 2 days to go from the end, and the guy who was leading the race. They had a thing on him the other day. It's a personal friend of mine now, Nanny Roma, the Spanish guy. He took the wrong way because the organizer of the Dakar tried to trip you up because they have to make the navigation difficult, and sometimes they give you two meanings for one thing. So you think you're on the right track, you think you're on the right compass bearing, but you're in the wrong canyon. So you got this mountain between you, and just before the mountain, there's two tracks. But when you come into the track, the compass bearing is showing the same. But the moment you start in that canyon, it starts changing. And he got into a canyon where he couldn't come around. And emotionally, he broke down because he realized he had made a mistake. He was leading the race with 2 days to go. And he collapsed.
He collapsed.
Yeah, with emotion, he collapsed. And he was taken away on the helicopter. So he went from first place to nothing.
Not finishing.
I was third in the race, went back to second with 2 days to go. That's just the luck of the Dakar. Came in that evening on the phone because obviously now that's a big thing. There's a day to go.
Yes.
And I mean, second in the Dakar is something, especially from a South African
That's
boykie.
proper.
It's proper. And I still remember talking to Hazel, hey, how does it change the money? Yo. And she let me have it from the other side of the world. Yeah. Because I was just thinking about, we wanted to do something.
Reward.
Yeah, and from that lesson, don't think about how much money you're going to make. You're alive, you finish the race, and that's the most important thing. The rest will come later.
Is the Dakar the hardest race?
I would say there are races that are 1 day long. I don't know if you know that mountain race in Austria every year. It's called the Erzberg.
No.
It's a very hard enduro. It's in an iron ore mountain.
Okay.
They have it once a year. 2,000 riders come to it.
Wow.
Only 500 qualify for the race on Sunday.
So how do you qualify? You have to set a time.
You got to go up like a Pikes Peak.
Really?
Up the dirt road. It's a 10 or 15 kilometer Pikes Peak mountain, and then you get eliminated.
Okay.
And only 500 guys start on the Sunday's race, but it's totally extreme. It's the biggest climbs you can have. And that race is 2.5 hours long or 3 hours long, but you just destroy yourself.
You finished.
So for a 1 day, that's very hard. I won that race the first time in 95.
Wow.
When I was living in Europe. The cameraman who used to come to the Roof of Africa and come and film the Germans and the Austrians. Hey, come to this race. It's a brand new race. But okay, jumped in the van. Hazel and I, 1,600 Ks down to Austria, and I won the first Erzberg.
Beautiful.
So that race is tough if you only talk about a few hours of riding. But the Dakar in my day was 3 weeks, like the Tour de France, 18,000 kilometers. Yeah. So the Dakar for sure is tough because the early mornings on the motorcycle, you see how the elements are against you. It's freezing cold, 3 degrees. You're waking up at 3 in the morning to ride.
And what does the temperature get to, the hottest it gets?
In Saudi Arabia, not more than 22.
Okay.
Sometimes it might get, but it's not a hot, even 25 is not hot.
Okay.
But in Africa, the mornings were freezing cold in Morocco, and the days could get up to 30-something degrees.
That's
so
very hot.
It was
And
very hot.
you're on a bike, you've got equipment, you've got safety,
and then people all say, why don't you take your jacket off? No. And there's a story behind it.
Please.
When you're drinking and hydrating yourself, in your jacket, your body's sweating. And if you took your jacket off, the moment you sweat, the wind would dry you, dehydrate straight away. So when your body's wet inside and the wind's not drying you, you stay hydrated.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
No, so if you just rode with a motocross shirt on in 30-something degrees all day,
you'll be dehydrated.
You won't have enough water because the quicker you drink,
everything's
evaporating.
gone.
So you keep yourself moist and wet inside the jacket. Helps you to stay hydrated.
How do you feel when you climb off that bike, towards the last day of the Dakar? I mean, you are broken.
You don't feel it until you get home. I know me, like it used to hit you 2 days later because you've had lack of sleep. But just the emotional fulfillment of finishing the race. Oh, you see it. Grown men cry.
Yes.
because it's not only that, it's the money it costs to go to that race. So if you
Yes.
come over the line, it's like, wow, because you know every single person, if you're a privateer, in your circles have given money for you to go to the race. And it's not little bits of money. It's a lot of money.
What do you think? We spoke to a gentleman the other day that arranges tours on Everest. To climb Everest is a minimum of about 1.75 million rand.
Yeah.
With the Sherpas and with the oxygen. What is a entry cost to the Dakar?
If you want to do the Dakar and 1 or 2 races before the Dakar, that's what it would cost you.
Same amount.
Yeah. If you bought the bike, that's without the bike. You rent the bike. Like my boy rents the bike. But if you buy the bike, it's 650,000 before you even go to the race.
Wow.
You buy the bike.
And that's a bike that's ready for
it's ready for the Dakar, yes.
Amazing.
So yeah, it's easy. It's for a privateer, it's nothing short of 1.2. Look what the look what the mountain bike races cost. You know, the Cape, not the August, what's the mountain, the big one?
The big one.
The mountain bike one, man. The August is the road one.
I actually spoke to a friend of mine that did the race.
I'm getting old.
We'll get back to it now. We'll Google it.
Yeah. That's what it costs. You know, we talk about 80,000 rand. Yeah, most things you buy an expensive something.
Yeah.
You can justify in circles 80,000 rand.
Yeah, 1.2 million.
But when you justify 80,000 euros times 18,
yes,
that's different. So to enter the Dakar, I think is 11,000 euros. That's just your entry, but then it just never stops. The bikes, the tires, the spare parts, the hotels, the flights, it's
a sea.
Totally, it's just imagine that's only for a motorbike.
Yeah.
To go with a car, you're looking at 4 or 5 million to go with a car.
Yeah. Wow.
So the rich uncle, if you've got one.
Yeah, he's the guy that you should
befriend.
The man.
Yeah.
You know, make sure his beers are always
cold. And when he goes like that, you just
jump.
get him one, yeah.
and then you ask him, Uncle, by the way, how long must I stay up? Okay, you can come down, no problem.
No, listen.
Awesome. If you could spend a day with someone, what are you processing with that person, and who's that someone?
Yeah, look, I looked at that question and I thought, you know, I don't really have. I mean, yeah, I suppose there's Formula One. You know, I'm a petrol head, so I'm into.
Your favorite Formula One driver?
I don't know. You know, I think Verstappen is the best at the moment. But
yes.
I like characters like Kimi Räikkönen.
Yes.
I like guys that don't just keep quiet.
That stir the pot.
Yeah, no, I like Kimi. I would say.
He's your guy.
He's my man because he doesn't take nonsense from nobody. Yeah, he's the ice man.
Very opinionated.
Yeah, no, but he's correct. If you read his book, the guy he's correct. I mean, what he says, and yeah, it's you become too much like a yes man because you controlled by everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, who would I spend? Yeah, I don't really have. I'm just into technology and like R&D, right? Development and stuff like that.
What do you think of electrification?
Listen, as much as we are against it, the petrol heads of the world, we're not going to get away from electric. We were in that. My youngster, Hazel and I took him now to Finland in October last year to the World Juniors Championship. And everything is electric. It's a hybrid car. You rent a car, it's hybrid. You go on a bus, it's electric. It's just everything is electric. My German friend, he's got M3s from 15 years ago at home, and he says every day they're crying on the TV, electric, and we're not going to change it.
No,
we have to. I mean, motorcycling is changing now. Electric bikes. You know,
have you taken an electric
KTM
bike?
makes a very nice electric bike. It's an enduro bike. It's called the Free Ride. It's got power like a 450.
Really?
But yeah, the batteries are still the issue. We want to ride for hours.
What is the range?
It does about on the low power. It does about 80 kilometers on the low power. 80 k's. Yeah.
Okay, and but
if you put full power, obviously you're lucky to do 40.
Okay.
Yeah. So you've got 2 hours of riding maybe. So yeah, until the batteries or till it recharges itself or something, then yeah, I mean, even the taxi that picked us up in Finland was electric. It was a Peugeot.
Electric
It
Peugeot.
was a Peugeot big taxi. No, it was a 10-seater or 8-seater.
Like a van.
Peugeot van, electric, 350 k's a day he does, and he's got to recharge it.
No problem.
But it's electric, and that's what's going to happen. Europe, some towns in Austria, you can't go in there if the car's not electric. You got to park it outside and take the electric bus into town. So we're not going to get away from it. So as long as well, hopefully I might not be around by then. But yeah, can you imagine? It's boring. But
I've got a different opinion. So I'm also a petrol head. I love cars. I love driving cars.
Yes.
Anything that converts petrol into noise. Is I'm a fan.
Yeah. Okay.
But I've driven a couple of electric cars.
Yeah.
Last car I drove was a I-Pace, and I had a Land Rover experience, a Land Rover Jaguar experience.
Yeah.
They do it in Centurion, and a very nice guy that went with me. And you know, I've driven on tracks many, many times. So he said, "Pops, I trust you. I'm going to guide you how we are going to whip, you know, the big SVRs
Yes.
of the world." And the power delivery from 0 to about 150, 160 is uncomparable. It's just, you know, you've got a 420, 30 kilowatt plus car that's four-wheel drive, and you just destroy him.
Yeah.
It just pulls away from him. So I think that part, and you know, having said that, we're still in the beginning stage.
Yeah.
So what does that power delivery look like in 5 years? You know, how fast can they make them?
No, look, it's nice. I mean, we came into the shopping center. You don't hear the car. It switches on to electric. You know, the hybrid. We had a Toyota hybrid car there. And yeah, but it's still not using, it still uses 5.5 liters. That's not, you can buy a little diesel.
Nothing,
you know, you can buy a diesel, anything nowadays, a small 1600 or 1500 diesel that does 5 liters on its own without having electric. So yeah, I'm for it as well, because it is nice.
Yeah, it's different.
It's different, and we're going to change. The world is changing. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't look. If petrol keeps going up, you'll be kissing that car. I can tell you now, or even the bike.
But for the longest time, you know, off camera, you know, my friend Vince, he's smiling here. For the longest time, there is nothing for me like just a loud C63. When you start that car, you're like, I'm a man, I'm alive. I don't know if electric will ever give you that outside of just the brutal acceleration.
They'll put a little flaky in the
thing, probably for you inside.
Inside, make a noise.
Fly against the wall. You could overhear. Who's in the room? Who's talking?
I'd love to know when the Eskom Oaks are sitting and talking, or the president and his men are talking, because that's interesting to know how those guys tick. Formula One over the wall. I'd love to hear what's going in Toto Wolff's, you know, mind, and you know what's happening in the Red Bull thing. So those, I'm sure, like in real technical stuff where strategy is, and I would be interested in something like that. Nice. But yeah.
Nice. Favorite book? What's your favorite? Are you a big reader or movies?
No, that's one thing in my life. I haven't been a favorite. I read dirt bike magazines, you know, just what I wanted to read.
Yes.
But you know, like many years ago, a good friend of mine, he's moved now up to Bloemfontein. His name's Stefan Boshoff. A lot of people know him. We would go riding together because we did an event in Serra Ranch every year in Mooi River. Cars came with adventure bikes like BMGSs and the KTMs. And we used to go and mark the track, you know. So some nights we used to stay out. And then we'd get onto the subject, you know, not about Christianity or anything, but then he would often, when we were out in the day or in the evening, everything is in the little book. And like, I was like, in the little book, you know. And only now, I mean, you realize of the years, the little book is the Bible.
Yes.
read your devotion every day.
Yes.
Hazel and I read it. Any answer you want is in that little book,
Beautiful.
if that's what you can call it. That's the
Beautiful.
reading we do every day. That's the reading I do every day. Yeah, I'm not a big reader, but the little book, as he called it, has got all the
Everything's in it.
answers.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, favorite car. First car. Let's go first car. I know you know the first bike was you named it. I'm sorry, I forgot the name.
Oh, the CR125.
Yes,
Yeah,
that
the
was your
motocross
first-
bike. Yes.
So first car. What was your first car?
In those days, we had to transport a bike. So you needed a small bucky
Yes.
and the Datsun 1400.
That was a perfect
Yeah,
fit.
that was even they gave you the high roof where,
Yes.
where the oak could put his hat on. I remember the advert. That
Yes.
old Burki
Yes.
could wear
with
his
a hat.
Stetson hat. I remember. So no fan, 1400, 1200 rand. I mean, it was 1980, I think it was. I just come out of the army. 1200 rand. Datsun 1400 was first car.
So on that, a couple of months ago, a friend of mine, a neighbor of mine, phoned me, says my dad wants to sell his 1400 bucket Champ. I'm like, cool, no problem.
And then the Champ came. Yes.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
We get there. This thing has got 29,000 kilometers.
No, man.
It's like 10 years
No,
old,
man.
15 years old, 29. Uncle, what do you want for this
Yeah.
car? He would love to get an amount. I said to him, done. Shake his hand. If I tell you, I mean, we've got beautiful Porsches. We sell all
Yes.
types of cars.
Yeah.
The day that Champ comes onto the floor, the whole company, the guys from across the street, they
No.
inside. And you know, you've got the old school guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, hierdie kilos is nie reg nie.
Yeah.
I said,
No,
it's the
because-
truth.
yeah.
There's the service history. It's
Yeah.
like brand new.
Yeah.
I think it was like 30 minutes later, boom, sold.
Yeah.
Sold.
So we used to go to race motocross. Well, then I started also with Enduros. Richard Manning and myself, we used to load 2 bikes, all our bags, fuel drums with a tailgate down, PE and Cape Town in
There
a
we go.
1400. It
Lekker. Time of
it
your
was
life.
unbelievable. Yeah,
Time of
man,
your life.
1400 Datsun.
And favorite car. What do you think today? It's like, yes, this is lekker. This is for me. This is me.
Well, in those days, you progressed from a 1400 to a 3-liter Cortina bucky, a leisure.
There we go.
We used to go to the races, Enduro, and there was at least 20 to 25 3-liter Cortina buckies. We thought it was a Ford dealership
Yes.
because that's what when you progressed.
When you made it, when
it
you
was
arrived,
like
that's how you
$6,000
arrived.
bucks, I think
Whoa.
it cost. I had a maroon and white one, and then we got Borg Warner 5-speed gearboxes, and we put Granada power steerings on them. Yeah, we pumped ours out like you can't
Tune
believe.
them.
Yeah, Bro Speed exhaust pipes. But I don't know. Favorite car now? I mean, if I could have a nice car, I'd like a nice sports car, you know, because
What's a nice sports car too?
a Porsche, I would say. I mean, I've been in Porsches many years ago, and that's just, I mean, my love for Germany and my friends from
Yes.
there. That car, it is, you know. I always Ferrari. It would be nice, but I ask an Italian, "Do you drive an Alfa?" And he says no. So he drives a Toyota or
Yes.
something, you know. So why is an Italian not driving a
Correct.
Ferrari? You know what I mean? So
You know, the Porsches, we sell many. And if it's got 11,000 Ks or 125,000 Ks, inside, it's the same.
yeah.
Just very high
I
quality.
used to watch the Englishman on that program. What's his name? The little guy and the big guy.
Oh, Jeremy Clarkson.
I used to watch that, and obviously, the little guy he was Porsche mad.
Yes.
And there was always a war
A
between
rivalry.
yeah, whatever they had, and he proved it. That thing, yeah, it was plain inside and everything, but yeah, I would say a Porsche would be nice. I was hitching home from the army one day. I'll tell you about the Porsche, and I was sitting at Heidelberg.
Hitching home from
From
Pretoria.
Pretoria. So I
to
got a lift to
Pietermaritzburg.
Heidelberg, and I'm sitting under the bridge. Heidelberg. It's just getting dark Friday night because I got a quick pass and I didn't have the bus. So on the highway, my Ray Veilig band, you know, you had a band in those
Yes.
days, and this 928S pulled up.
Oh, the
Yeah.
928 still had the lights that
The
popped
lights,
up.
and it's got the V8 in front.
Yes.
This pulled up.
Oh,
And he said, "Hey, where are you going?" I said, "No, I'm going to Maritzburg." He says, "Pinetown." He owned a transport company.
jump.
I fell in love with that car. That thing was so fast. It was the first time they opened the highway from Ladysmith down to Escort. That freeway had
Yes.
opened. And he still was doing it down there. 250, I think it was doing. And I got out. It was raining too. I thought, no, this is madness. This is the car I want. I did my first or second Dakar. I think, I don't know. I made I won 60,000 Rand. I got fourth in the first Dakar, I think it was. I said to Hazel, that's the car. I looked in the book. They were dirt cheap. You
Yes.
buy them for 35, 40 grand.
Yes.
Eh? And I said to her, that's what I want. 9 to 8. He says, you're having a midlife crisis. I said, listen, it doesn't matter. I've got enough money. I want to buy that 9 to 8. The lady in Joburg owned one. Made her take me to Joburg. Eh? Bought this thing, but it was left-hand drive, hers one, which is not a problem. It was manual, left-hand drive. By the time I got back home, I thought, what a piece of shit. Then I phoned, in those days, in our off-road racing, Franz Chepik. He's still alive today, Franz. He was the Porsche man in Commissioner Street in Joburg. He owned the Porsche dealership, V Motors.
Okay.
And Franz, he knows anything about Porsche. He had Porsche engines in the Sandmasters.
Okay.
Phoned Franz up. I said, hey, Franz, I got one of these cars. He said, my boy, open the kick panel and have a look how many ECU boxes there are on the side here. Now, go and sell that car.
Now.
And like I said to my wife, come on, one trip just to the Midlands, Hazel, come, get in the car, just listen to that sound. But, it was just 30 years later, it was just
not as impressive as the first
not what I
time.
thought it was. Oh, man, I tell you. Somebody phoned me and said, hey, you've got a car for sale. I said, yes.
I've got a Porsche.
I'm bringing it to you now. So that was my love for a midlife crisis Porsche,
You're an amazing man. You're an awesome man.
No.
I've had so much fun. But before we go, I want you to please, you touched on the adventure tours that you do, with the 4 strokes. And I know you invite people from Europe and all over the planet to come and do. How do we get in touch with you? How do you prefer bookings? Is it sold up front? How long before the time do we have to book? Share some info, please.
So when I lived in Germany in 95, I realized in Europe, it's not possible to ride a dirt bike. The only place you can ride a dirt bike is on a military ground, but the local government has to give you permission to go with an off-road bike.
So that's a story.
I went to Enduro races in Germany. You ride on the tar road, and one farmer gives you a field, and they make a track, and they time you. That's basically back onto the tar road with indicators on the dirt bike. Austria, Switzerland, and then after the year in Germany, I said to Hazel, oh man, we must come home. I must start adventure tours. We've got the country, the Wild Coast, the Berg, Natal, the Valley of the Thousand Hills. These oaks will be wheel spinning when they come here.
Yes.
And in 96, we started. I've been doing them for 22 years.
Beautiful.
So at the moment, I'm a Red Bull legend. I'm in the legends category of Red Bull. I've been with Red Bull since, where are we now? 99.
Okay.
So I'm not an athlete anymore, but I still belong to Red Bull as a person, in other words. And it's a nice company to be involved with. So they do something for me now called destinations. So for the first 15 years, I was the adventure tour. I still am for KTM.
Okay.
I did KTM adventure tours. Like you can go anywhere in the world and you could go and do a tour in Italy, Spain with KTM. I did the South African leg.
Got you.
They did all the advertising. People just arrive here with your bag and your helmet and off you go. You can go on a tour. Then Red Bull came to me and said, hey, what would you like to do? I said, I'd like to carry on with my tours. Not only off-road tours, but adventure bike tours. The guy that's got the collar and tie, he's got whatever bike he's got at home.
Yes.
Africa Twin, KTM Adventure or a GS or whatever. We bring the guy from Europe and I take him through Lesotho, Berkeley East, stay at nice hotels. And Red Bull have been doing it. This is our 3rd year now. And now next weekend, we're going to go and film the dirt bike side of Red Bull's coming to film the dirt bike side of my tour, the Enduro tour.
Okay.
In other words, that's down the hill, through the rivers, up the other side. So I operate in Coffee Bay in Wild Coast. I've been there for 20 years. And then back home, the Valley of the Thousand Hills, and then in the Drakensberg. So we've got 6 days of riding. But for local people like South Africa, I've got a lot of Joburg, because Joburg guys haven't got the riding that we've got down there. They've got the Volt, they can go to the mine dump. So it's not like we have got in Natal. We've got the Valley of the Thousand Hills. That goes on for 3 days if you want to. You've got the Drakensberg. There's so much riding that we've got in Natal. So a lot of my Joburg customers, friends, and clients, they got their own bikes. The Europeans, I supply the bikes.
Okay.
But a lot of the local guys, so I always say to the guys, you've got your mates that you ride, 5, 6, 10 guys. Then, because a lot of guys, like now, if I tell you the story, they'll say, one guy will be sending Hazel email, hey, Joe Soap's coming to Bolito for the weekend. Can you take him for a ride? I mean, it's for me to take one guy for a ride.
Yes.
There are guys that do that type of thing, but we do groups.
You enjoy the
so
groups.
At home, we've got cottages at home. We sleep 12 people. So we've got the eating hall, breakfast hall, and we ride from our farm in Cater Ridge. And if the guys want to, we can meet down at the Wild Coast, where I do take many Joburg guys have come. But it needs to be a group.
Yeah. Not
just a one-off. It's got to be at least 6, 7 guys at a time to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, have a duel.
But for the local guys, 2 days, and they're tired after 2 days. So we ride 2.5 days normally. Leave on a Thursday, ride the Thursday afternoon. We ride all day Friday, all day Saturday, Sunday lunchtime. They're at home. Mommy's happy. They're home by the weekend.
Everything's good.
Yeah, and they just get on the email, and but it's got to be groups of guys. Otherwise, the Wild Coast it's just paradise for motorcycling, for sure it is, man.
Beautiful, and we'll make sure we give the links and all your contact information.
So it's got to be groups, but the Europeans, I supply the bikes. Obviously, they ride KTMs when they come, which is nice because a lot of guys in Europe ride different brands, but because they come from a motor club, and then the motor club says, "Okay, guys, we're going to Alfie for a ride for a week." And, because in Europe, it's so, you can't go anywhere. Yeah. So so if you live in Germany, you've got to drive to Italy, you've got to drive to Spain. It's kilometers.
Yeah.
And some of my Swiss clients have come 3 times to me. They reckon, Alfie, we work hard all week. So we take our bag, we get on the plane, we're here the next morning, no time change.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more difficult for the Aussies and the Americans, but within a day or so, they're into our time. And the guy says, I can come here, ride my bike for 1 week,
offload,
enjoy myself, offload my stress of my work, go back,
recharge.
So we just, like I told you, that Bob, I live the country through the eyes of the tourists.
Yes.
Because you forget about what you've got in your backyard.
And they remind you.
And every time you stop on a hill and the oak goes, wow. And you think, what's he going wow about? And then you look over there and think, sure, okay.
Beautiful country.
Down the next hill, up the next one. And you've got to keep pinching yourself. Hey, listen, the Wild Coast, you arrive back there at Roy Sparks' place at White Clay. Crayfish in the evening, seafood. I mean, it's
the best.
For a townie,
the best.
The trip down is quite hectic because, through the Transkei, it takes a special guy to ride on that road, But they fly into Umtata. I pick them up at the airport, take them down to the resort. So it's easy for them. It's not so hectic because you imagine they're on the wrong side of the road, wrong side of the car, and our speed limit with the trailer is not 80 like in Europe.
No,
you see. So
no.
$10
as fast as you can go, as much power as you have in your
$10 hanging off the end of the trailer, and you're hooking it a little bit at 120. So I suppose the oaks are a little bit nervous, But it's we are totally blessed with this country, I promise you. And I'm too old to go anywhere, and why should I? And I always say to people, COVID has taught us.
Yes.
I'm sure the COVID definitely taught us as a family to reset. We were stuck at home. What we're going to do? Okay, now our boys and Hazel, we spoke about things that they didn't know about me from my racing. I did a couple of YouTube videos about 6 days. Then at home we had competitions, my big boy and myself, to change tires during the COVID, made videos.
Nice.
Then I made a grass track, and we raced each other in the afternoon.
Nice.
But it was nice to reset as a family.
I like the story you told me earlier when the boys challenge you about, what do you know? The times are different now. We're quicker. And then you always point to them. Listen.
Yeah, I showed them the trophies at home. I said, boys, you see those trophies?
Yes.
They didn't just get given to me.
Yes. They were earned.
But Dad, you raced the blind school.
there's always an excuse.
Ooh, there's a roll every night at the table.
Beautiful.
Yeah, but it's hey, listen, if people can, I always say to people, it's to have your kids all over the world and you at home by yourself. It's not what life's about.
Yeah,
we're blessed, Hazel and I. Our boys are at home. We sit at the table at night, talk about life, talk about, you're there. The boys are racing, so our time away from our busy motorcycle dealership is to load the van up and we travel to the race. We go on a Thursday or a Friday. The boys race on Saturday and we come home on a Sunday, back to work on Monday. But it's a bit of stress because you're with the kids and they're racing, but it's family time. You're driving in the car, talking about life.
Processing, yes.
Arguing. But
that's always fun.
It's always fun. Yeah, I hope it could carry on. You get to 60. How many more summers have you got left?
Lots more. You're still a young man.
That's what I'm hoping.
And full of energy. I want to say thank you so much.
Hope I've answered all your questions.
You have.
And it's
Absolutely.
been interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
and you have definitely impacted us, and you are going to leave us better than you found us. Thank you so much.
I appreciate having me, man. Thank you very much.
It was awesome fun. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.